Okay, well, good morning, everybody. It's 11 o'clock by my clock, my phone. So welcome, bienvenue. My name is Don Darling, and I'm the mayor of the city of St. John. I'll be serving as your moderator today. On behalf of the cities of Bathurst, Campbellton, Dieppe, Edmundston, Fredericton, Miramichi, Moncton, and St. John, welcome to our third webinar in the Strong City, Strong Province speaker series. We continue to be grateful for the technology that allows us to connect virtually during these challenging times and extend our best wishes to all the individuals, families, seniors that are dealing with the impacts of COVID-19, as well as our healthcare workers. Thank you for your compassion and your dedication. COVID has impacted all regions in New Brunswick and across the country, but our thoughts are currently with the region of Edmundston and the northeast region of the province, as well as our Atlantic friends and neighbors in Newfoundland and Labrador. We are extremely pleased with the widespread interest in the Strong Cities, Strong Province speaker series, including participation from all three levels of government, the private sector, and community leaders from all parts of New Brunswick and beyond. We're also really pleased to welcome the Honorable Danielle Alain, the New Brunswick Minister of Local Government and Governance Reform, as a participant in our wrap-up webinar next week. We are also truly honored to have today's speakers and presenters share their views with respect to the future of New Brunswick cities and municipal reform. They will be more formally introduced shortly. The Strong Cities, Strong Province speaker series addresses the important questions of how New Brunswick's 8 cities can contribute to a viable and sustainable future for our province at a time when we are facing a challenging pandemic recovery process, amplified by legacy economic, social, and demographic challenges. The speaker series is designed to examine the future role of New Brunswick cities and their critical importance as an economic, innovation, and population growth hubs. A reminder that the speaker series is being delivered with simultaneous translation services, which you can access from your Zoom screen. And with that, a bit of background and context, it is now my absolute pleasure to introduce our first guest speaker, Carol Saab. Carol joined the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, or what in the municipal world affectionately is referred to as FCM, in 2010. She served as a manager of government and media relations and senior director of policy and government relations before being appointed the founding executive director of policy and public affairs in 2018. And in 2020, Carol was named chief executive officer. I think what Carol is most admired for as municipal leaders across this country is in her superpower in delivering and working with the federal governments and other levels of government to negotiate and securing historic investments in national infrastructure, municipal programming, and capacity building, and so much more. We're so honored to have you here with us today, Carol. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Darling. I'm really equally honored to be here with you, if not more so, and so pleased to share the virtual stage with some fantastic mayors this morning. Je suis vraiment très heureuse de participer à cette rencontre avec vous.
I'm very happy to participate in this activity with you. I'm very excited about hearing what you have to say and to hear about the leadership that we're seeing in this very difficult time. We will all learn from these initiatives, I'm sure.
On the front lines of COVID-19 and have been working flat out to protect people and businesses. I have a bird's eye view of how that is playing out in my role as CEO at FCM. And it really has been an incredibly difficult but also inspiring time to have this role, to see the work of cities and local governments across the country in really keeping their people safe and all the work to support a recovery to come. Some very quick local examples here. This includes things like Moncton, turning the Moncton Coliseum into a COVID testing site, Fredericton creating a website to promote local businesses. These are the kinds of initiatives that have been happening across the country. And FCM, for our part, mobilized pretty quickly to coordinate these frontline response efforts, share local expertise, bring our members together in different groups, our rural forum, our Big City Mayors Caucus, the meetings with the associations like this and their provincial municipal association counterparts, municipal staff, to really mobilize a national effort at a local government level to deal with what has been an unprecedented challenge. And part of our role as well has really been to bring urgent local priorities to key federal decision makers. And so meetings with the Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, and Finance Minister, as well as other ministers as we go through this. And it has been an unprecedented time for collaboration, because I think what the pandemic has laid bare really is that all orders of government must be working together in a coordinated way, an efficient way, to be able to tackle really significant national challenges in a timely way. As many of you will know, the pandemic has also brought on a pretty significant municipal financial crisis, brought on by rising costs, falling revenues, municipalities without the ability to run deficits. And it came to a point where it really threatened vital local services that Canadians depended on, as well as our ability to lead a future recovery for the country. And so FCM really, through our members, was able to advocate with the federal government and push forward a solution which was at the outset, at least the first round of this, a safe restart agreement, which was $8.6 billion in emergency funding for municipalities that included $41 million in federal funds for New Brunswick communities. And we really continue to try to have conversations beyond what have been sort of traditional jurisdictional boundaries, to say we really need to come together and work quickly together as orders of government to be able to deliver for Canadians in this pretty critical time. And so that has included securing really vital support for cities and communities. A good example of that is the Federal Rapid Housing Initiative, where we worked pretty closely and effectively with the federal government to get a $1 billion investment to house immediately house some of the most vulnerable populations who were facing the pandemic from a pretty precarious situation. It included an expansion of the Universal Broadband Fund, so $1.7 billion to really try to expand and accelerate broadband access in communities across the country. And of course, just last week, this also included a pretty landmark announcement around a permanent transit fund, which notably included a focus on rural and regional transit as well. Knowing that this is going to continue to be an essential backbone, both for the recovery, but also for Canadians and essential workers as we continue to move through this pandemic. Other example, you'll hear here, I hope you're hearing what the theme is: partnership, and it's both from a perspective of governments together, but also with other stakeholders and actors in this space. And a good example as well is we partnered in a pretty unprecedented way with the Canadian Medical Association Foundation, who, through a generous donation from them, we were able to use our infrastructure to deliver money very quickly to communities, to the most vulnerable populations, to cope with the impacts of the pandemic. And that fund included $80,000 for 4 cities in New Brunswick, supporting virtual mental health initiatives in St. John's, a youth emergency shelter in Bathurst, just by way of a couple of the examples where we've been able to do that. And I think the real takeaway for us right now that we can't afford to lose in terms of a lesson learned is both how vulnerable we can be collectively, but also what we're capable of when we work together. And we really are trying to take these lessons learned in what is a generational opportunity to learn from this pandemic and play them forward to build a more inclusive, a greener Canada. And any durable recovery to that end needs to be rooted in cities and communities where Canadians live, work, and raise their kids. And what has been clear in this pandemic is that cities are essential partners, including small and mid-sized cities. They understand what's needed on the ground. They have a strong track record of getting results. And to that end, we've started to lay out some concrete recommendations that further empower cities to create jobs, to get the economy going, and really build a better Canada for everybody. And those recommendations include a gambit of issues, as is the case for how cities play in the sense of national challenges. So it's building an inclusive recovery. So everything from increasing affordable housing, ending homelessness, strengthening community infrastructure, building a greener recovery, so modernizing public transit, supporting community climate action and resilience, building a resilient partnership. And so shoring up municipal operations for the duration of the pandemic, strengthening direct funding tools, really giving cities and communities and local governments the strength and resilience they need to play the leadership role the country needs them to play. And the recovery is going to continue to take bold federal and provincial leadership with empowered partners in cities and local governments on the ground. Canadians expect their governments to work together. I've seen it, and then some in the past year, that cities and communities are ready. That's how we're going to build a greener, more inclusive Canada. And so with that, Mayor Darling, I'll leave it there, but I hope that helps set a bit of a tone for the kind of role that cities and communities can be playing in moments like this and the recovery going forward.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Carol. We'll move to our next speaker. The mayors, we've asked our mayors to give us in this round just a very quick sort of 5-minute state of the city update with a focus on their current challenges, opportunities, sustainability initiatives. So our next speaker is Mayor Philip Brown from Charlottetown. Mayor Brown was born and raised in Charlottetown, one of 9 children of Eddie and Babe Brown, who operated Eddie Brown's Transport and Crane Service. I love the connection to such entrepreneurial business. He was a teacher for 28 years, which I'm sure serves him well in his role today, served on council, and now is proudly serving as the mayor of Charlottetown. Mayor Philip Brown, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Don, and thank you, Carol, for your introduction of what we were planning to speak or discuss today. So, greeting to all our guests this morning. Bonjour tout le monde. Je suis très fier de participer dans.
I'm very proud to participate in this meeting. It's a very important meeting, not only for Prince Edward Island and the city of Charlottetown, but for the Atlantic region in general.
I'm speaking to you from unceded Mi'kmaq territory, and I would like to pay my respects to the Indigenous peoples of Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Terranub, past, present, and future. It is an honor to be here on behalf of the Office of the Mayor, Charlottetown City Council, as an invited speaker for the Strong Cities, Strong Province webinar. Today's theme, Lessons Learned, Canadian Urban Case Studies and Past and Best Practices, is a perfect opportunity to discuss the ambitious spirit of 3 of Eastern Canada's fastest growing cities as we tackle the challenges and opportunities that growth and innovation present to the municipalities across the country. And again, thank you, Carol, for offering a valuable overview of the key issues which face Canada's municipalities during the pandemic recovery process. Cities across Canada, including Charlottetown, find themselves at a crossroads on key issues as we begin to plan and navigate the post-pandemic economy. With humanitarian and social development crises worsening across the world, it is easy to think that the solutions to these challenges are beyond the capacities of municipalities. In 2020, however, cities were on the front line of the first on the fight against the pandemic. As such, the responsibility of managing the economic and social impacts of the pandemic is within the reach of municipalities. I'm glad to have the opportunity to speak with all of you today and to learn about how other cities in Eastern Canada and also Mayor Patterson from Kingston, Ontario, are addressing these pressing concerns. The City of Charlottetown's priorities in response to the demands of local authorities and social movements is to collaborate with other levels of government and other municipalities to create a more livable, healthier, and more sustainable city. Charlottetown's economic growth and its appeal as a great place to live and start a family has led to a boom in development and population. Some astounding news is that the building permit, just our building permit activity in Charlottetown, increased by $22 million from December 2019 to the end of December 2020. That is significant for a small city like Charlottetown, which is the highest dollar value recorded in the building permit activity to date. Building permit activity at the end of 2020 was $180 million. Again, significant for a small city like Charlottetown. To put this in perspective, 2016's building construction values were at $60 million. So a 300% increase in building construction activity. Rising cost and prices paired with dramatic increase in population has led to an ongoing housing crisis. The city is collaborating with both provincial and federal governments on the housing crisis here on Prince Edward Island to implement our affordable and accessible housing strategy, as well as implementing our inclusionary zoning policies going forward, which I am hoping we will have a chance to discuss further in the question and answer period. I would like to highlight a few of our key sustainability initiatives that our city has been working on over the past few months. I'm pleased to say that the fastest growing department here at the City of Charlottetown is our Environment and Sustainability Department. As we continue to implement the Integrated Community Sustainability Plan, this plan, which was put into practice in 2017, provides a framework of tangible, sustainable goals and actions that the city is striving towards. In 2020, our Environment and Sustainability Department made several important pivots in their public education and awareness campaigns to ensure the key messages of environmental protection and sustainability were delivered to the community despite the pandemic. The department has also completed energy audits of all city facilities and developed a strategy to retrofit facilities in order to reduce the city's energy demand and associated greenhouse gas emissions. The city has continued to work closely with other levels of government, environmental groups, and academic institutions. More recently, the Environment and Sustainability Department successfully launched and began implementing the city's first tree protection bylaw. Over this past year, Charlottetown has also made major upgrades to our active transportation network, allowing residents to safely navigate the city through many methods of transportation, be it bicycle, wheelchair, or on foot. We have plans to continue to expand this network in the coming years. A major challenge that presents itself in the next few years as we begin to navigate the uncharted territory of a post-pandemic municipal environment is how to adapt our cities to be resilient. As we assess, plan, and act to adapt and transform our city to be more sustainable, we have continued to make strides to become a resilient city. To this end, in December 2020, the City of Charlottetown received the World Council for City Data ISO 37120 Platinum certification, highlighting our commitment to data-driven decision-making. The data we are collecting will allow us to compare Charlottetown's progress to other municipalities around the world to emulate best practices on issues such as equality, sustainability, and development. The best way to develop a resilient urban space is to start measuring our progress as we work towards our goals. Joining the World Council for City Data's initiative will unquestionably aid us in tracking the success of our programs, initiatives, and policies going forward. Again, I would like to extend a sincere thank you to Neil Jacobson and the Cities of New Brunswick Association for the opportunity to speak to you all today in what will surely prove to be a valuable conversation on sustainable development, as well as to adapt to the reality of being among the fastest growing cities in Eastern Canada. Thank you, merci beaucoup, stay safe.
Thank you very much, Mayor Brown. I think already in our first two speakers, you see the type of leadership that's being demonstrated at the municipal level, the strategic thinking. Congratulations on your ISO certification. So thank you very much for your remarks. Next, we'll go to Mayor Brian Patterson of Kingston. Thank you very much, Mayor, for joining us. The mayor is the 96th mayor of the city of Kingston. In 2014, he was elected, and again in 2018, he was elected for his second term. Mayor Patterson's vision is to establish Kingston as a smart and leading city. This vision aims to harness the community's culture of innovation to make Kingston a leader among cities. Brian Patterson moved to Kingston. I thought this was a very important message for all of us. You moved to Kingston in 2000 to attend Queen's University as a graduate student in 2006. Obtained your master's and PhD in economics at Queen's. You joined the faculty of the Canada's Royal Military College in Kingston, where you continue to work as an assistant professor and then moved on into municipal politics. So get those university students to our cities and don't let them leave. Over to you, Mayor.
Well, thanks very much, Mayor Don, for that introduction. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to join all of you for a great discussion this morning. Bonjour tout le monde, me fait plaisir d'être avec vous aujourd'hui.
I'm very pleased to be here with you today and to participate in this discussion.
Maybe an overarching observation that I found in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic is how problems and opportunities have arisen and how often they're connected. It amazes me how when we're confronted with a problem and we try to solve the problem, it kind of unlocks an opportunity we haven't thought of before, and vice versa. When we see an opportunity, in order to seize the opportunity, you usually have to solve a related problem. And so I thought I would just give 3 examples of that just to kind of kick off the discussion. So certainly for us, first and foremost would definitely be housing. Our housing market is red hot. It certainly started that way a couple of years ago. But interesting how the pandemic has created this pandemic flight effect out of larger urban centers. And so Kingston's about 2.5 hours east of Toronto. We're seeing enormous pressure as residents from the Toronto area are moving to locations like Kingston with a much higher quality of life and greater affordability, for example. And so, I mean, great benefits from that. Certainly, we're seeing increased diversity in our community, more entrepreneurial spirit. We're bringing new talent and new businesses to the city, which is great. But the housing issue is key. There's definitely pressure. We're seeing big increases in our housing prices. And so that affordability issue is front and center for us. If I had to say what I think is the main opportunity that we're seeing here is that, when it comes to sustainability, we're doing, investing in transit, investing in electric vehicle infrastructure and, creating active transportation opportunities and cycling infrastructure, looking at energy efficiency incentives, all that great stuff. I think one of the light bulb moments that I had is that the most important thing a city can do for sustainability and climate action is found in its planning policies. And so really, I think taking account of, with this growth pressure, channeling it so we grow in the right way. And so for us, it's been a lot of work in planning policies to try to infill and intensify in our core so that we can get housing built, record amount of housing built, but getting the right kind of housing, getting the variety of housing, and in those ways that actually enforces and creates that environment of walkability where people want to take active modes of transportation, not because they have to, not just because it's the right thing to do environmentally, but because it's the most convenient thing to do. And so that's some of the things that I think we're really focused on. It's not always easy. Kingston's a very historic city, and so how do you balance off intensity, which usually means taller buildings, in the midst of a heritage historic downtown core? It's probably one of the biggest challenges that we've had to face. But I think for us, we've learned a lot about how it's not just about the height of buildings, but it's about design elements, about all the look and feel, about how you can have new development and still preserve the historic look and character of a heritage district like we have in Kingston. So I think housing would certainly be one. The second thing that really comes to mind is challenges about how to best care for our most vulnerable residents. And I can tell you that certainly when the pandemic hit, it became very clear, certainly for our residents, particularly those dealing with mental health and addiction issues, that the current system and the shelter system, it just wasn't working for people. And what we found after a couple of months is that we had an encampment, a tent city that was growing in a part of the city, and it created challenges, but it also, so here's where the problem and the opportunity come together. The opportunity was it really brought to focus issues that had always been there underlying that hadn't been managed well, and brought it to the surface, created the political will to say, how do we reinvent how this is happening here on the ground? And I'm sure everyone can identify with this. Municipalities are always at the front lines. When something isn't working, we see it first. And so for us, it created an opportunity for the city to go and to lease a building and bring all of the social service agencies and support agencies together under one roof, create an integrated care hub where a vulnerable resident can come, and there's a safe consumption site, but also related supportive housing and counseling and other referral, basically where all the agencies come together, and then they're able to create that wraparound care. Everyone talks about is like the gold standard. That's what we should be doing with our most vulnerable residents. But I don't think we would have stumbled across this if it wasn't for the pandemic, and that basically created a problem that needed an innovative solution. So that would probably be my second example. I think the third, just really quickly, was certainly on the economy. So our tourism, hospitality, and culture industry, that's one of our most important sectors. It represents a big fraction of our economy. And obviously, you can imagine over the last year, hundreds of people that have lost employment or had that employment greatly reduced, the number of people in that sphere that are struggling. And so for us, I think it's really, that's the problem. So the opportunity has been, how do we help support that industry that's so important to us? And so it's led to some creative thinking, something we call the Love Kingston Marketplace, where we've basically taken the downtown, we've closed parts of it off for pedestrians, all in the name of physical distancing and creating new opportunities for people to have a reason to come to Kingston, but do so in a safe way. That it's been really key. So I think that's led to some innovative thinking on that. And then the other piece that I would say is that if tourism is going to take some time to recover, there have been other sectors which surprisingly have expanded and growing and doing better than they've ever done before. Certainly some of our manufacturing and some of our other sectors. That's created an interesting opportunity for different business leaders and community partners to come together at the same table and say, how do we help transition people? Maybe we're employed in, for example, the tourism sector that might take a while to recover. How do we create this one-stop shop to help transition them into other employment opportunities in sectors that are ultimately lots of businesses that are looking for people? So I think that collaboration at a community level, I've never seen to this degree. And you talk about how sometimes necessity is the mother of invention, and ultimately to see a greater level of collaboration among community partners, businesses, social services agencies, and the city all sitting together, probably we wouldn't have done if it wasn't for some of the challenges and opportunities that have come forward with the pandemic. So maybe I'll leave it there, Mayor Don, because I know amazing discussion questions you have set forth. Again, thank you for the opportunity this morning.
Mayor Patterson, thank you very much. How I just couldn't help myself but to be thinking about, I often am surprised by how there's such a lack of understanding of the roles that we play as mayors and how thoughtful. I mean, that you could have just been giving a seminar from a top private sector corporation in this country, and I would say how much we have in common. This session could be probably 3 hours long, but we're on the clock. But perhaps, Carol, there's a medium-sized city caucus that we could build out of this discussion as well. That was fantastic. Thank you. Our last speaker in this first round, and then we're going to move to a rapid round of questions and answers here very quickly, is Mayor Mike Savage. And the mayor was first elected mayor of Halifax in 2012. He most recently was reelected again. His bio is about, because his experience is that vast. He was a member of parliament. He worked in the private sector. But I think, Mayor Savage has got the competency and the motivation and the vision. And if you know him, he's very quick-witted. But whenever Mike Savage has something to say, I think a lot of people listen because there's a lot of experience there. So for your opening remarks, Mayor Savage, we'll turn to you.
Thank you very much, Don, and to my fellow mayors from some of Canada's fastest growing and most beautiful cities, happy to be with you, Carol. And to the folks who are organized this and are putting this on, thank you very much. I'm very pleased to join you from the ancestral and the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. The peace and friendship treaties, which were signed centuries ago, are very important in our future as well as our past. Je suis très heureux d'être ici avec vous. Bonjour à tous. I have got a couple of slides.
Very happy to see you, and hello to everyone.
The screen, my erstwhile Chief of Staff, Sean McKinley. Are we able to do that? And I'm setting my thing for 5 minutes here, Don. If I'm speaking in 5 minutes, I'll just shut up.
I've got my gavel here.
So do we have the ability to put those?
Yep, there they are.
All right. So I don't know what we're looking at here, but
hang on.
First thing I want to do is just show you the growth of Halifax sort of visually from the from a viewpoint.
Sorry.
So let's just move ahead. Oh wow, we're going backwards instead of forwards. All right, so first of all, there we are. Go back one more, Sean. So this is Halifax in 2012 from the ocean, a beautiful city. But this is now Halifax today. If we'll move to the next slide to give you a comparison of how the city has changed and grown. Moving ahead, last year during COVID, 9,015 new people came to Halifax, July to July, which made us the second fastest growing city of the top 36 metropolitan areas in Canada. Now, for us, what's very important is that about 2/3 of them have been immigrants, and that's an important number, 5,751. And very little of our growth is now coming from inside Nova Scotia, even Atlantic Canada, which used to be the case. Our total population is now 448,554, and as you can see, we've had years of consecutive growth, and last year was the second biggest we ever had, even during COVID. More important for us last year, an impressive statistic from the city's point of view, was that from January of 2019 to January of 2020, the labor force data, while Canada has saw a drop of over 800,000 people in the labor force and Nova Scotia saw a marginal drop, Halifax's labor force grew during COVID by 4,600 people, and it was over 5,000 full-time jobs. We actually lost a few part-time jobs in retail. So we were the fastest growing in both absolute numbers and in percentage in Canada of the largest cities. 17 is another number. I don't know if I have a slide on that, but 17 is the number of new companies that started with us last year, some of them quite large, that have decided to come to Halifax during the pandemic. But of course, the recovery is not happening everywhere. Our tourism operators, hotels, our airport, restaurants, entire swaths of retail, the cultural industries are all facing terrible realities. There is no sugarcoating the fact that a lot of people have been hurt by COVID. Of course, like my other colleague mayors here, we took our council meetings virtual. We went through a municipal election and kept significant policy going forward. I want to just mention Halifax. Halifax is a climate change strategy that we adopted last year during COVID, where we have decided we're going to, in the community, reduce total emissions net zero by 2050. But as a city, in our operations, we are going to have net zero municipal operations by 2030. We've continued to build a mature relationship with our Indigenous peoples, including accepting a recommendation on the Cornwallis statue and the Cornwallis name. We directed our CAO, Jacques Dubé, to make sustained and lasting progress on improved race relations. We have large African Nova Scotian community. We're taking steps. This is a picture from one of our streets where we put Black Lives Matter. Anti-Black racism is a big piece for us. Something else that happened during COVID that's important to us is we achieved at the council level gender parity. We went from 2 councillors out of 16 to 8 councillors out of 16 are women, and we're excited and we're proud of that. Now, of course, we have challenges. We continue to press the province for funding commitments through a variety of initiatives, especially in transit, where the federal ridership based allocations benefit cities, but we need the province to step up. We have a long list of outstanding legislative requests of the provincial government. It's been a bane of my existence, as it has for other mayors, that we have to go to the province cap in hand to do things that are good not only for the city, but for the province as well, even changing the Motor Vehicle Act and things like that. Mayor Patterson and Brown both mentioned housing. Last year, our residential vacancy rate was 1.9%. It was up slightly from the year before, probably due to less students actually here. 4.1% average rent increase is not sustainable for a lot of people. We've been making some progress. 52 new affordable housing units being funded under the RHI that Carol mentioned. 25 new affordable townhouses in Dartmouth North, which we use surplus land for. And keep in mind, housing is not a municipal responsibility here in Nova Scotia, but it has to be a shared responsibility. Mayor Brown mentioned some of the units that they've approved over the last few years. We've approved an average of almost 4,000 units per year, which is a marked acceleration. We're working and seeing positive advancement with our partners. Something else we're very proud of in Halifax is we are buying as well as protecting existing land for the years to come. We protected 519 acres of rugged natural land in the heart of the city. And so the city's been growing, and the numbers tell a story of a growing, prosperous Halifax, but cities are obviously a lot more than the sum of their parts. So population, GDP, labor market data are important, but really, I think cities are judged by their values. We must be welcoming. We must be open to new people and new ideas. With our post-secondary research and private sector, innovation is a priority. Seizing on the ocean advantage, supporting startups, and being the kind of energizing city where young people want to live. So we must acknowledge that we're called upon. This is very important to do more for racialized people who've not had the same access. We recently adopted an African Nova Scotian Road to Economic Prosperity action plan with our Halifax partnership, which is really important. So As we manage through what we hope are the final months of the pandemic, our willingness to make the health and safety of friends and neighbors says a great deal. And I believe we can continue the momentum of our city and continue to be a very successful city where everybody gets to be part of the growth. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. And in the language of the Mi'kmaq people, Walalia.
Thank you very much, Mayor Savage. A lot of great information there as well. So next, we're going to move into our, I've dubbed it the rapid round. This is where we're going to get into some discussion. We've got about 20 minutes before we have to start to wrap up. So the city as hubs for economic innovation, population growth. So the first two webinars in our Strong City, Strong Province speaker series have reinforced the critical importance of New Brunswick cities or cities as economic development, innovation, and population growth hubs. So in this round, we ask, just very, very direct sort of answers, your views. We'd love to really get this rolling back around. So I'm going to throw this one out to the mayors. So you each represent cities that are experiencing economic innovation and population growth success. What's driving that success? What's your secret sauce? And Mayor Mike, maybe can we start you off with that one? You're muted, Mike. Yep.
We've become a tech hub over the last number of years, more than we ever have. We've always had the universities. We have 7 universities in Halifax and a very strong community college, but I don't think we had the collaboration among the partners that we needed to have. And I really believe that if you want to be a city that encourages innovation and encourages startups, and accelerators and sort of second stage startups to your city, you have to embody the behavior of those companies. That means being faster and more nimble in the way that you do things. You can't be tied to bureaucracy, because these companies are many of them are used to failing before they succeed. It is part of doing business, and governments have been notoriously afraid of taking risks. So I think you have to be a little more bold. I also think that companies these days, I talk to lots of them. Yeah, they want a good tax regime. Yes, they need talent, which we think we have, but they also want to see a city that has values of respecting the environment, that embraces diversity and inclusion. I think immigration in Canada is a big advantage over many other places in the world. So I think making sure that we embody the kind of behaviors that the tech industries themselves embody is really important.
Perfect. Thank you. Mayor Patterson, same question to you. What's your secret sauce?
I certainly would agree with a lot of what Mayor Savage has shared. I honestly think that remote work is a game changer, where suddenly quality of life becomes that much more important, because you'd rather live somewhere where you want to live, and then if you can work and connect with your employer, even if that's another community. So I think that that's something that we're going to have to wrap our heads around, and I think it's a real advantage for medium-sized cities. Certainly for us, a couple of things. First of all, you need to decide what you're good at and where you have a competitive advantage and where you don't. So sometimes that's hard politically to say, this is where we think, for example, Kingston, we know that in healthcare innovation, we can do stuff because we've already got that existing base and there's already a lot of activity that's going on. So we focused on that area, for example, versus other areas that maybe, we could try, but we're never going to be as strong or as well equipped as other communities. So I think that that's one thing. You've got to be pretty honest with yourself and do that consultation about what you can do and what you can't. And I think to the point about startups and innovation, the one thing about being entrepreneurial is taking risk. One of the things that we have found as a municipality is that when we have startups, sometimes the big hurdle is a new startup having a chance to test drive their new technology or their new idea. And as a municipality, we've tried to create that platform. So we had a company come up with an innovative bike sharing model. So we gave them a chance and we test drove it, and it was a big success. Another company that called Spectroplasmonics that came out of Queen's University, a group of entrepreneurial students, and they've developed a testing to be able to identify toxic substances in the drug supply. And so you think about the opioid crisis and how many people are losing their lives because of that. This technology, we've put it into our integrated care hub, and you know what, it's saving lives here. So this is the sort of thing where as a municipality, right, we're saying we're open. So I'm very clear with the community, my door's open. If you've got an exciting, innovative idea, come talk to me. If the municipality can give you the platform, if somebody else in the community can, and then that way that test drives it and gives them a chance to be successful.
Wonderful. Thank you. Mayor Brown, your secret sauce.
Listen, for the city of Charlottetown, I always have to tell people that we're significant we're small, but our identity is placed in the fact that an act of Parliament, Bill C-267, recognizes Charlottetown as the birthplace of Confederation. And that makes us one of those symbols of Canada, the beaver, our national anthem, the Rocky Mountains. So that's what we always, or I always try to sell as a great little city to come and live and raise a family. But pre-COVID-19, Mayor Darling, has been working collaboratively with NGOs, working with professional organizations, working with our service clubs. And as Mayor Savage said, I know there are 7 universities there in Halifax. My son is attending SMU for his master's in business administration. But we have UPEI, the University of Prince Edward Island, along with Holland College. And Holland College is a technical institute that is really working with industries all across the sector, across all sectors, aerospace, the biochemical industry, manufacturing. So these partnerships that we try to foster and develop and work with are very important. But I have to say one thing, Mike, and Mayor Darling, I'm probably going to repeat this a couple more times. We have a development corporation here in Charlottetown, referred to as the Charlottetown Area Development Corporation, that was started back in 1974. And it has invested hundreds of millions of dollars into the city of Charlottetown. Now, going forward, post-pandemic, we hope to work with our sister communities, Stratford and Cornwall, to create not the Charlottetown Area Development Corporation, but the Capital Area Development Corporation, with a focus on providing innovation, investment, and expertise for individual projects of economic and social benefit. And I think that's going forward is, and I said this yesterday, Mayor Darling, is that it's all about collaboration, cooperation, and finding compromise. So I do want to stress the point that this post-pandemic will present a lot of challenges, but it's about working together going forward.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Carol, how do we successfully align our population growth efforts with the provincial and federal governments? And how do we amplify our municipal voices with provincial governments in Ottawa, and particularly as we face a challenging recovery process from the pandemic with competing healthcare, economic, and social priorities? So I guess, how do we amplify our voice? Any advice for us as we move into recovery?
Thanks, Mayor Darling. And I'll just start by saying, I completely agree with Mayor Patterson's comments here that the whole conversation needs to be situated in the recognition that communities of all sizes are experiencing really massive changes right now. And we can either be behind the ball on that or harness it as a moment for innovation and transformation collectively as a country. And it's only going to happen if there is real collaboration and real partnership that we've started to see in an unprecedented way. And so when I hear you ask, what is the secret sauce question? I mean, I think it's pretty clear if you listen to the mayors on this panel that cities not only are essential in this, but they are driving this conversation. Listen to what you're hearing from the mayors here. And so it's nonsensical to not be having a growth strategy conversation across governments. It doesn't make sense to not align efforts. And so the secret sauce really is that recognizing that cities and local governments are leading this agenda and that the federal government needs to prioritize harnessing that power. And truly the provinces who figure that out first are going to fare the best in an economic recovery. If we can figure out how it is to best take the lessons we've learned about the successes we can drive, like RHI, like some of the other innovations the mayors have just described, where out of necessity, we blew past some traditional boundaries around conversations and how we work with one another to prioritize together the growth and success of this country. I think that's going to be fundamental. And I'll give you one very small example. Although it's a very small piece of the growth puzzle, we're expecting to hear in the next few months some more from the federal government on next steps on the municipal nominee program, which will allow communities, chambers of commerce, labor councils to directly sponsor permanent immigrants. I mean, to make sure that those conversations, and the FCM is working on this, takes into account the local government perspective, ensures intermunicipal cooperation, financial support for capacity building for local service providers, alignment with the affordable housing programs that are being put out. All of that is critical. And those are conversations that aren't going to happen without cities and local governments at the table. And so we'll do our part doing that. But really the secret sauce is collectively as governments appreciating that conversation is critical.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Carol. I think we're seeing how complex, again, I think this particular session could have been 2 or 3 hours long. New Brunswick is embarking on municipal reform and has committed to the creation of an urban strategy. So in terms of context, New Brunswick has 104 local governments, 236 local service districts, and 12 regional service commissions for a total of 352 administrations. Administrative units providing local services to a population of just over 780,000 people. By comparison, Nova Scotia has only 50 municipalities providing local services to an estimated population of 980,000 people. I'm going to come back to you, Carol, with the first question here. The province of New Brunswick has now formally embarked on its municipal reform process. What advice would you provide to the New Brunswick government and all 8 New Brunswick cities as the municipal reform process moves forward?
Thanks. Well, I think what's clear and what everybody is hearing at any order is that Canadians want to emerge from the pandemic with a country that's more resilient to the next threat, whether it's a virus or extreme weather or whatever the milestone challenge that will be. And I think what you're hearing today and what's being exemplified is that the local governments bring unmatched expertise in Canadians' daily realities. They turn investments into outcomes on the ground efficiently and effectively. And so harnessing that kind of power in a better, stronger partnership is going to be key. And so I think it's also, to be really frank and really honest, being upfront in these conversations that, quite frankly, the tools and authorities available to local leaders don't match the modern role municipalities now play in supporting Canadians and the economy. Weeks into the pandemic restrictions, cities and communities found themselves on the brink of insolvency. And that became pretty clear pretty quickly. And there was a very quick response to try to figure out how we get this right. Well, let's learn about that. Canada's recovery is the right moment to resolve and modernize the municipal toolbox. And so my advice, as you embark upon an ambitious municipal reform process, is to really use this as the moment in time to have those ambitious conversations about modernizing the fiscal and legislative tools to prepare municipalities to carry Canadians through to the next major disruption.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Carol. Mayors, fair taxation is a huge topic here in New Brunswick and in my own municipality. How do each of you ensure that citizens, businesses, industry, and regional municipalities are paying their fair share of municipal operating and infrastructure costs? And we'll go back to you, Mayor Patterson, to start us off there, if you don't mind.
Well, I mean, definitely. I just want to say I was ready to stand up and cheer with Carol's comments on the need for a new framework for municipalities. I think basically it's a two-pronged approach here. On the one hand, we've got to advocate for something better, and at the same time, in the short term, got to figure out creative ways to exist within what we have. And so I think that's basically the two-pronged approach we're taking. So again, unifying with certainly all municipalities across our province in Ontario, both large and small, by the way, because you have to be careful about the divide and conquer approach that the provincial governments can sometimes take with municipalities. So you have to be very, very concentrated and work very hard on that piece. But within the existing framework, I mean, I think it's a lot of strategizing, obviously, when it comes to taxation, not only how you grow your tax base, but also how you're ensuring that you're growing in a way that you're minimizing growth in your costs too as well. So that comes back to the earlier comment about how a city can grow in different ways, and certain ways that you grow bring a lot more financial burden. So sometimes you just have to understand that. And then the other piece is, how do you leverage existing public dollars? How do we find ways to match those with private investment, whether it's into housing, for example, or other ways to encourage other pots and revenues to be able to match with tax dollars? Because listen, we understand there's only so many tax dollars to go around, and especially at this time, it's really hard to go back and ask for people for more. So how do we make those dollars stretch further?
Perfect. Thank you. Mayor Savage, fair taxation comments?
Right. Thank you, Don. So the situation that you have in New Brunswick is different than we have, but we all, as municipalities, what I want the provincial government to take the handcuffs off. Let us grow, and we will grow to your benefit as well as, to our benefit. I mean, that's what will happen. This crazy process we have to go through all the time to do what we want to do. The province, over 5 years ago, I brought a motion to council to allow permanent residents to vote in municipal elections, passed unanimously. Province hasn't acted on it. No. Inclusionary zoning, which would help us immeasurably in the housing situation, we haven't had the opportunity to do. Recently, the provincial government, and there's some good work going on there, set up a housing commission, but they didn't invite the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities to be part. They invited us as Halifax and Cape Breton, but not NSFM. And we all protested that, and they didn't. The bottom line for me is that we have to get elected as well. And I thought 50 was a lot of municipalities in Nova Scotia, clearly compared to New Brunswick and PEI, it's not. I think that municipalities have proven that they can act in sensible, progressive, but fiscally responsible ways. I don't think you hear about the kind of spending scandals with municipalities that you often hear with other orders of government. We should stand up, and we need to work with our provincial colleagues. It's not probably top of mind for them to say, okay, how do we help? And in Halifax, in Nova Scotia, Halifax is so dominant in terms of size. I don't want Halifax to grow at the expense of other parts of Nova Scotia or even Atlantic Canada. I think that if you take the handcuffs off municipalities, let us show what we can do. We get back to we have to be elected as well, and we can work together, and it would be to the benefit of the entire province and region if we had more powers. So that would be my view.
Thank you, Mike. That's sage advice. Mayor Brown, can you give us an example of innovative or enabling municipal legislation in PEI that has contributed to the success and growth of your cities? Sorry.
Don, I think all of us know the fact, the political fact. Municipalities are creatures created by provincial legislation. We're incorporated bodies. If you look at the Constitution of Canada, the two levels of government that are recognized include the federal and provincial government. So starting from that point, we have to work in a collaborative, cooperative way. And with our taxation system here in Prince Edward Island, all taxes, residential and commercial, are collected by the province and distributed in a fair and an equitable way. But we do have some deficiencies in there. But I want to just stay on this because if you look at the federal programs, the gas tax, FCM and all municipalities have to work hard to get that tax to increase, to not going with CPI, but with the demands on municipalities in providing needed infrastructure. And I think if we can get that gas tax augmented to take care of some of our infrastructure issues, I think that's a step in the right direction. Also, the other item is the federal provincial infrastructure programs, the red tape that's involved in these programs. And if you look at the red tape just for providing new facilities that have less of a carbon footprint, there's the CCM funding, which is climate change mitigation funding. We're looking at applying for that for some facilities here in Charlottetown. It's a long process. And in order to get these projects off the ground, the city has to start on its own, hopefully with some provincial assistance. But cut down the red tape on those programs, increase the gas tax to the cities, municipalities across this country, and work collaboratively at all levels of government.
Perfect. Thank you. This issue is so important to New Brunswick. It is a bit different than other areas in the country. The province of New Brunswick collects $360 million in property tax a year. 66 million of it is returned in unconditional grants. Over $190 million goes into general revenue. So this is why this issue in New Brunswick is such a critical issue for us. I have a whole new appreciation for radio hosts trying to cram incredible conversations into, because we're down to the final minutes. Carol, a couple of minutes and then I'll wrap up. How do we better educate and inform citizens with respect to the role, function, and importance that their municipalities are playing, and perhaps some of the handcuffs that we have legislatively? Any advice?
Yeah, I'll be really quick, recognizing your tough spot here with time. I mean, it's about making it tangible, really. Even in the before times in the pandemic, it was challenging for people to keep track of what each order of government was responsible for. And to be even more frank than that, I don't think Canadians care. Ultimately, you know, they want and expect that to be served and for collaboration to happen. And that's become even more challenging to really clarify in our communications channels with constituents, as a lot of that has been upended by the pandemic. And so it's really important to show people how what your governments are doing locally support their quality of life now very tangibly and into the future. And that's why an event like this is so great, Mayor Darling. The examples you're all sharing are inspiring, relatable. It's a great jumping off point for further conversations in our communities and on other channels. So as tangible as possible.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I came from the private sector myself. This is my 5th year as mayor, and you know, certainly the piece of having folks not appreciate is the wrong word, understand the role that municipalities play and the actual authority that certainly I can speak to that mayors have. In fact, none in New Brunswick. You know, rarely vote, but so you know, you are a CEO, you're an ambassador, you're an executive like I was in my private sector time. So it's a very, very interesting role. The last area that we were going to explore, but we won't have time to today, is, and Mayor Patterson, you brought it up, all of the mayors would agree, all of my colleagues and those attending today's session, we are on a daily basis being called on to play an even bigger role in social inclusion, housing, poverty reduction, all items that in the 1960s, the provincial government took on as responsibility: healthcare, education, social, and you're right, Carol. To say as a mayor, I'm sorry, not my job, is not something I say very easily to people. If you want housing or need housing as a fundamental need, or you need social supports, that's not something I do as an empathetic, compassionate, caring individual. So it's how all 3 levels of government can work together to act with more urgency. I happen to believe I would not have wished COVID-19 on any of us, but how do we, and Mike, you spoke to it, acting more nimbly, accepting some calculated and informed risk, being more strategic, cutting down red tape. Mayor Brown, you spoke to that. Mayor Patterson, you spoke about some of the innovation that's come from COVID. We've seen it in the delivery of healthcare. We've seen it in so many areas. And, I think we find ourselves in a place now globally across North America and here in Canada, where there's a lot of frustration with their elected officials, frankly, a lack of trust. And what I've witnessed is a lot of folks who truly do care and are working day in and out to improve their communities. So how do we not let the crisis of COVID-19 slip away on us and lose this opportunity to advance ourselves in decades worth of normal type change, that as we start to recover from COVID, that the urgency slips away and that perhaps we lose some of those opportunities. So, to me, it's about acting differently. It really comes down to political will at the end of the day to make those bold and those brazen decisions so that we can move our communities forward. I'm going to wrap us up now. It has been such a pleasure today. Thank you to our 4 speakers and panelists today for a great discussion on some fantastic content. Amazing job. And again, round 2, round 3, we will need to do it again. Thank you so much for freeing up time from your extremely busy schedules to be with us. In light of the challenges and opportunities discussed today, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge how pleased the Cities of New Brunswick Association was to see the provincial government officially launch its local governance reform process in January. Thank you, Premier. Thank you, ministers. Thank you, MLAs. You've said you're going to do it. And now it's time for action. So while the modernization process will be challenging, municipal reform is critically important in shaping a sustainable future for all New Brunswickers. New Brunswick's 8 cities are encouraged by the provincial government's commitment to meaningful stakeholder engagement and the need to recognize rural and urban centers and small and large communities. Our success going forward lies in shaping a municipal governance model that facilitates regional cooperation and provide citizens with effective local representation and the efficient delivery of municipal services.
Yeah.
The Cities of New Brunswick Association will continue to advocate for municipal governance and property taxation reform that will give all 8 cities the ability to participate in decision-making that directly affects their costs, growth opportunities, and residential tax rates, and will ensure that we have strong cities in New Brunswick, helping to ensure a strong province for all New Brunswickers. Thank you for participating in today's session on behalf of the cities of Bathurst, Campbellton, Dieppe, Edmundston, Fredericton, Miramichi, Moncton, and St. John. Session 4 is coming up next Friday, and we'll have a great discussion again talking about diversity and population growth with Dr. Paul Mazerow, the President and Vice Chancellor of UMB, Jeanette Gautreau, Executive Director of New Brunswick Multicultural Council. We also will be introducing 4 municipal innovation and action profiles: Bathurst, Edmundston, Fredericton, and St. John, and discussing next steps with the minister himself, the person of the hour, Minister Daniel Alain. I would say, if I could, to be blunt, it is time for the province of New Brunswick to equip New Brunswick cities with the legislative autonomy and ability to drive population and economic growth in the future. The potential is absolutely immense. On behalf of the 8 cities, myself, Mayor Don Darling, thank you so much. Please register for next week. And I can't believe it. It is noon on the button. Thank you so much for participating today. And we look forward to seeing you all again.
Don, just before we go, on regional cooperation, we do have the Atlantic Mayors Congress. My first meeting was over in Halifax. It's a great organization. I know Mayor Stephanie up there in Campbellton has hosted the Atlantic Mayors Congress. It's a very beautiful vehicle, a very useful vehicle to move regional agenda items forward. So keep that in mind.
Thank you very much, mayors. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thanks, Carol.
We'll chat again soon.
Thanks, Mayor Savage.
Cheers. Thank you, Carol. Okay, bye-bye.
Stay safe.